There's something about the 1960s that modern sci-fi movies just can't replicate. Maybe it's the gritty charm, the bold storytelling, or the fact that back then, filmmakers had to rely on raw imagination instead of CGI budgets and endless studio notes. Whatever it is, the 60s gave us a string of science fiction films that dared to go deeper, emotionally, psychologically, and even philosophically. In a world where every sci-fi blockbuster today seems to be chasing spectacle, explosions, and shared universes, these forgotten gems from over 6 decades ago still managed to hold their ground, and in many ways, stand taller. They didn't have AI de-aging, they didn't have 3D rendering forms, and they definitely didn't have multiverse marketing machines. But they had heart and vision and guts. Today we're digging deep into the vaults to spotlight 10 sci-fi films from the 1960s that have aged like fine wine. They might not show up on your Netflix homepage, and they probably won't trend on social media, but these are the kinds of movies that will stick with you long after the credits roll. And just before we jump into the first one, if you're into sci-fi history, underrated classics, and cinematic deep dives like this, subscribe to our channel. We're building a space for fans who love discovering forgotten brilliance. Hit that notification bell too, because what's coming next you won't want to miss. Let's begin. Number 10. La Jetee. Produced in 1962. This isn't a typical movie. There are no moving scenes, no sweeping tracking shots, no dramatic action sequences. La Jetee is told almost entirely through still photographs. And yet, somehow, it's one of the most emotional, haunting science fiction films ever made. Directed by French filmmaker Chris Marker, La Jetee is a 28-minute meditation on time, memory, love, and fate. Set in a devastated post-World War III Paris, the story follows a man imprisoned underground by scientists trying to send someone through time. They believe he's the perfect candidate because of a vivid memory he holds from childhood, standing on a pier, watching planes take off, and seeing a man shot before his eyes. That memory becomes the key to his journey through time. And what he finds, both in the past and in the future, will alter everything. It's a story that unravels slowly, but with deep impact. There's a twist, of course, and when it lands, it doesn't just surprise you, it stays with you. The entire film is composed of black and white still images, narrated softly over a minimalist score. There's only one moment of actual motion in the entire film. And when it happens, if you catch it, it feels like magic. Marker turns limitations into power. He makes you see movement in stillness. He makes you feel time collapsing, not through spectacle, but through still frames and poetry. Now, if this sounds familiar, it's because La Jetee inspired Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys, a full-length Hollywood production starring Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. But ask anyone who's seen both, and they'll likely tell you, La Jetee hits harder. It's not just about the concept, it's about the execution, the emotional weight, the silence, the stillness, the aching sense of memory. In a world of fast-paced blockbusters, La Jetee is a reminder that sometimes slowing down is what makes a story unforgettable. It's not just better than most modern sci-fi movies. It's more daring, more thoughtful, and far more human. Number 9. The Day of the Triffids. Produced in 1962. Imagine waking up one day to discover the world has gone blind. No disease, no war. Just a meteor shower that lights up the night sky and robs almost every human being of their sight. That's the terrifying premise of The Day of the Triffids, a British sci-fi horror film that mixes post-apocalyptic survival with alien invasion horror. But what makes it unique isn't just the blindness. It's what shows up after. Triffids, walking carnivorous plants that have been quietly growing in greenhouses around the world. These towering stalks of death, equipped with whipping tendrils and a thirst for flesh, begin hunting humanity while it's vulnerable, blind, and in total chaos. At first glance, it might sound ridiculous. Killer plants? Really? But this film knows what it's doing. The atmosphere is dense, unsettling, and surprisingly grounded. The sense of dread isn't just from the Triffids, it's from watching society collapse in real time. Crowded cities turn to ghost towns. People turn on each other. Morality crumbles when survival takes over. And somewhere in that chaos, a few sighted survivors must find a way to fight back. Number 8. First Spaceship on Venus, produced in 1960. In 1960, before the space race had even hit full speed, a strange, haunting collaboration between East Germany and Poland tried to imagine what first contact with alien life might really look like. The result was First Spaceship on Venus, a film that's been buried by time, often dismissed by critics, and all but forgotten by mainstream audiences. And yet, underneath its awkward dubbing and propaganda-tinged narrative is something unexpectedly profound. The story begins in the year 1985. Earth scientists discover a strange artifact, a spooled data recorder, buried in the Tunguska impact site in Siberia. After decoding it, they determine that the object is of alien origin and was likely part of a long-abandoned mission from Venus. A team of international astronauts is dispatched to investigate the planet and uncover the truth. What they find is chilling. A civilization that destroyed itself through a deadly chain reaction of radioactive warfare. A warning encoded in their final message to Earth. The Venusians are gone, wiped out by their own technological ambition. The film mixes sleek retro-futurist design with stunning matte paintings, eerie alien landscapes, and bold storytelling. What makes it apart is its commitment to hard sci-fi concepts, language decoding, communication struggles, geopolitics, and the terrifying consequences of unchecked technological power. Sure, some of the visuals feel dated, the effects are primitive by today's standards, but that only enhances its charm. The practical sets, the surreal alien terrain, the strange, slow pacing, it all feels like a dream. And here's where it earns its spot on this list. Despite being made during the Cold War by countries behind the Iron Curtain, First Spaceship on Venus tries to push beyond propaganda and ask timeless questions. Number 7. Fantastic Voyage, produced in 1966. The year is 1966. America is preparing to land on the moon. Sci-fi is shifting from the stars to the soul. And then comes a film that doesn't take us into outer space, but into the human body. Fantastic Voyage is exactly what its title promises. A surreal, groundbreaking adventure that feels as fresh and imaginative now as it did when it first hit theaters. Here's the premise. A brilliant scientist has defected to the West, carrying secrets critical to the Cold War. But before he can share them, he suffers a brain injury that leaves a clot in a part of the brain no surgeon can reach. The solution? Shrink a submarine and its crew to microscopic size, inject them into the scientist's bloodstream, and navigate through his body to perform surgery from the inside. That plot may sound familiar because it's been parodied, copied, and reimagined countless times. From Inner Space to Osmosis Jones, the concept has become a trope, but Fantastic Voyage was the origin point, and it still holds up. The effects for 1966 were jaw-dropping. Pulsing red blood vessels, glowing neural pathways, ominous white blood cells, it's all stylized, surreal, and unforgettable. The filmmakers used giant practical sets, lighting tricks, and creative cinematography to simulate an entirely new universe, the one inside us. But beyond the effects, there's tension. The mission is timed. The submarine will only stay miniaturized for 1 hour. Every second counts. And as the crew navigates through arteries and into the heart, lungs, and brain, they encounter obstacles, both biological and human. Sabotage, paranoia, mistrust. This isn't just a sci-fi adventure, it's a Cold War thriller wrapped in biology. Number 6. Seconds, produced in 1966. Number 5. Quatermass and the Pit, produced in 1967. Sometimes, the most terrifying sci-fi stories don't happen in deep space. They happen underground. In Quatermass and the Pit, a routine excavation for a new subway line in London unearths something ancient. Workers discover a fossilized skull. At first, they think it's just an early hominid, but as they dig deeper, they find something else. Something metallic. vast and not from this earth. Enter Professor Bernard Quatermass, a brilliant but uncompromising scientist who quickly realizes that what they found isn't just old, it's alien. What begins as a historical mystery soon becomes a cosmic horror story that connects ancient human evolution with extraterrestrial manipulation. What sets this film apart is its layered storytelling. It doesn't just present aliens as invaders, it suggests they've always been here, shaping us from the shadows. The metallic object under London isn't a ship, it's a crashed Martian vessel, and the beings inside didn't come to conquer, they came to experiment, to tamper, to alter human evolution at its roots. Sound familiar? That's because Quatermass and The Pit beat films like Prometheus and The X-Files by decades. It's filled with eerie practical effects and chilling psychological moments. Number 4. The Mask of the Red Death, produced in 1964. If ever there was a sci-fi horror film that looked like it was dipped in madness and lit with fire, it's The Mask of the Red Death. Directed by B-movie legend Roger Corman and starring the ever-haunting Vincent Price, this film is a fever dream, a swirling, surreal nightmare, soaked in vibrant color, biblical imagery, and existential dread. Though often shelved under gothic horror, this is as much a science fiction parable as it is a Poe adaptation. The story follows Prince Prospero, a decadent and cruel nobleman who retreats to his castle as a deadly plague known as the Red Death ravages the countryside. Instead of helping his people, he throws lavish parties, indulges in satanic rituals, and mocks the dying masses beyond his walls. But something else is creeping in, something not of this world, cloaked in red, patient, watching. The science fiction angle isn't in the lasers or technology, it's in the speculative dystopia, the allegory, the virus that spreads without mercy, and the suggestion that something far beyond human comprehension is pulling the strings. The entire film plays like a surreal descent into moral decay. The visuals are hypnotic. Each room in Prospero's castle is painted in a single bold color, evoking themes of death, isolation, and inevitability. The tone is theatrical and grim. The dialogue is rich with philosophic despair. Vincent Price delivers his lines like a man already damned, yet pretending to be a god. And that's what makes this movie so disturbingly relevant even today. It's a story of elites hiding in luxury while the world burns, of people turning to faith, cruelty, and madness when faced with something they can't understand or escape. Number 3. The Damned, produced in 1963. At first glance, The Damned looks like a standard British crime drama. A brooding motorcycle gang, a beautiful girl on the run, a moody seaside town. But then it shifts, quietly, chillingly, into one of the most unsettling sci-fi revelations of the decade. The story begins with Simon, an American tourist wandering the English coast. He meets Joan, a troubled young woman caught in the grip of her controlling, violent brother, played with frightening intensity by Oliver Reed. A chance encounter leads Simon and Joan into a hidden government facility buried beneath the cliffs. There, they discover something impossible. A group of children, quiet, pale, emotionless, raised in isolation, sealed off from the world. At first it seems like a twisted orphanage, but then the truth comes out. These children are radioactive, born immune to nuclear fallout, bred as the future of humanity in case of global war. They've never seen the sky. They're educated through screens. They don't know who their parents are or why they must remain imprisoned for a world that may never come. Suddenly, The Damned isn't about romance or rebellion. It's about nuclear paranoia, government control, and the cost of survival. It's about a generation sacrificed before it's even begun. The film's shift from thriller to sci-fi horror is masterfully executed. You barely notice the change until you're neck deep in philosophical dread. The pacing slows, the lighting dims, the tone becomes claustrophobic. And those children, blank-eyed, eerie, quietly tragic. They don't scream, they don't beg, they simply exist, waiting for the day humanity destroys itself so they can begin anew. Number 2. Planet of the Vampires, produced in 1965. Before Alien, before Event Horizon, before sci-fi and horror began to truly blend, there was Planet of the Vampires, a low-budget Italian space nightmare that somehow feels more terrifying, stylish, and iconic than many of its big-budget descendants. The setup is classic. Two interplanetary rescue ships respond to a mysterious distress signal from a remote planet, but upon landing, the crew begins to experience bizarre hallucinations, and then something even worse. Their crewmates begin coming back to life, but it's not really them anymore. Now, let's address the title. There are no capes, no fangs, and no garlic here. The vampires are disembodied alien entities, parasitic forces that take over human corpses, turning the crew into unwitting hosts for their survival. What makes Planet of the Vampires so unforgettable isn't just the story, it's the atmosphere. Mario Bava, the master of Italian horror, crafts one of the most visually striking sci-fi films of the decade, using little more than colored gels, smoke machines, and shadow play. The skies are an unnatural red. The ground shimmers with fog. The ship interiors are soaked in deep blues and greens, creating an otherworldly sense of dread. The costumes, black leather jumpsuits with bright piping, are almost comically futuristic, but they work. The cinematography is fluid and theatrical. The pacing is deliberately slow, dreamlike, allowing the mood to creep into your bones. And it's not just style. The story itself taps into timeless sci-fi horror tropes: loss of control, identity theft, the fear of invasion from within. These elements were so well executed that Ridley Scott and Dan O'Bannon openly acknowledged Planet of the Vampires as a major influence on Alien in 1979. Number 1. Robinson Crusoe on Mars. Yes, you read that right. The number 1 spot goes to a film called Robinson Crusoe on Mars. And before you laugh off the title, give it a moment, because beneath that pulpy name lies one of the most heartfelt, intelligent, and beautifully crafted science fiction survival stories of the entire 1960s. The plot is loosely based on the classic Daniel Defoe novel, but the setting is Mars. After a mission goes awry, astronaut Commander Draper crash lands on the Martian surface. His co-pilot dies, his monkey survives. Communication is gone, supplies are limited, oxygen is dwindling, and he's completely, terrifyingly alone. What follows is a slow, poetic tale of survival. Draper must learn to make fire, find food, and most importantly, generate oxygen from the strange Martian rock formations. The first half of the film is pure, isolated ingenuity. No aliens, no battles, just one man against an unforgiving world. It's patient, thoughtful, and in many ways it mirrors the Martian movie in both structure and tone, only it came out over 50 years earlier. Eventually, Draper does meet another living being, not a Martian, but an enslaved alien named Friday, who has escaped a group of cruel spacefaring overlords. Together, the two men, different in language, culture, and species, forge a fragile bond in the Martian wasteland. There's action, there's tension, but more than anything, there's humanity. And that's what elevates Robinson Crusoe on Mars above the rest. It's not just about surviving on a distant planet. It's about loneliness, resilience, and the desperate need for connection in a universe that feels empty. To wrap it up, let us know in the comments, which of these films surprised you the most? Have you seen any of them? Are there other 60s sci-fi movies you think deserve more love? Do you think we should have added a particular movie? We read every comment and we want to hear from you. Drop a like if you learned something new, share this with your fellow film nerds, and don't forget to tap that notification bell because the next retro journey is already on the launch pad.